In the numerical discourses, there's one sutta about mindfulness of death. And the Buddha asks his disciples about how they are cultivating mindfulness of death. And one monk answers, I think if only I could live one more day and night, I would then practice the Buddha's teachings and I would gain a lot of benefit. And then another monk answers, if I could only live a day, then I would be able to practice the Buddha's teachings and gain a lot of benefit. And it goes on through, I think, 6 monks, where it goes to, if only I could live the length that it takes me to eat a meal, I'd be able to practice the Buddha's teachings and gain much benefit. Only 3 to 4 mouthfuls, I would be able to practice the Buddha's teachings and gain a lot of benefit. And it ends with one monk saying, if only I could live the length that it takes me to finish this one mouthful, then I could practice the Buddha's teachings and gain a lot of benefit. And another related discourse, it's the same thing with breathing. If only I could live as long as it takes to breathe in and out, or breathe out and back in, then I'd be able to practice the Buddha's teachings and gain a lot of benefit. And some of the commentaries on this talk about trying to bring in the awareness of death to these very small moments to really spark us to practice, to pierce through this sense of permanence that I see very clearly in my own mind. And in the discourse, the Buddha, in response to these responses from the 6 monks, answered that the first few, saying 1 day and night, 1 day, 4 mouthfuls, 1 whole meal, were practicing lazily. That's not the way to cultivate mindfulness of death. But it's the 2 that answered just this mouthful, just this 1 in and out, that will bring the level of immediacy of mindfulness of death to really cultivate the awareness of permanence and be able to progress along the path to awakening. So in the winter retreat, I spent some time on mindfulness of the body, looking at death, and seeing very clearly how it doesn't feel immediate. The truth that I will die, definitely, and that I don't know when, is not as deep as I would like it to be. So trying to bring in that awareness with, breathing in, breathing out, and just aware, like, this could be my last breath, and I really don't know whether I'm going to breathe in again when I breathe out. And to just sit with that again and again was quite powerful to see the resistance, or to see the lack of belief in my mind. Like, I'm just sitting here, why would I die right now? There's no cause here that could make that happen, but we just don't know. And in the 9-point death meditation as well, to be aware that even if this isn't my last breath, it's 1 breath less, and that the expanse of our life is just running out. We're progressing towards the point of our death, moment by moment, regardless of whether this is our last breath or not. And so, looking at the 4 establishments of mindfulness, I found that when I tried to bring mindfulness into something, I realized how mindlessly I was doing various things, and particularly around eating. So, having read that sutra about wanting to cultivate awareness of death while eating, and in the beautiful silence that we have, particularly during meals, it was just a nice extended period of time to try and really cultivate that awareness. So we say 5 contemplations before we eat our food, and the idea is that we don't just take the short amount of time that we contemplate them while we say them as a group, but these contemplations inform how we then proceed to eat as we sit back down. But I must confess that probably more often than not, I don't do that. My mind is about thinking about other things, often about the BBC that was given. I try and focus on that, or even if I contemplate the 5 contemplations, how quickly my mind is distracted to other things. So I'm trying to bring in the awareness of this mouthful could be my last, and seeing how does that play into how I am eating. So often I'll be eating, and I've still got food in my mouth, but I'm there preparing my next mouthful. little bit of this, a little bit of that, or I'll save that for this. I like to eat this thing first. And I've got the mouthful here waiting to go in. I haven't even finished chewing yet. That's like, if I'm really thinking about that this mouthful could be my last, why am I preparing the next when I could be dead? There's this kind of future, this mind that is always looking ahead, that's not just present where I am and paying attention to what's going on in my mind, or even having the awareness to fully chew my food properly before I swallow. I remember one acupuncturist that I saw said that to chew the food until it's like a milkshake in your mouth before you swallow. That takes a while. And to improve digestion, it's like, how often do I do that? So, but particularly just seeing that the future planning of preparing my next mouthful before I've even finished the first one. Then also perhaps liking what's in my bowl and then thinking, oh, I want seconds. But I've still got food in my bowl, so I'm already planning to go and get more of what I like when I haven't even finished what's in here. And don't even know if I'm still going to be hungry by the time I finish what is in my bowl. But I want it because it feels good. And I like leftovers for breakfast because I like veggies and tofu for breakfast. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm going to get this tomorrow for breakfast as well because there was so much of it. It's like I'm preparing for breakfast the next morning when I'm trying to cultivate this mindfulness that this breath, this mouthful could be my last. It was precious to see the disjunct between the truth and the uncertainty of the time of death and the mind that is clinging to permanence and that really doesn't believe in the fragility of life. We've heard stories about people dying as they're eating because they choke on their food. And Venerable tells a story of her father who died choking on a piece of steak, his favorite meal. That could be me. But do I believe it? And do I use that recognition to motivate my practice so that I'm not wasting my time ruminating about chocolate cake when I could be contemplating the 5 contemplations, the kindness of those who donated the food, who cooked the food, who grew the food, who packaged the food, the extended talk and meditation on the kindness of others that Venerable gave to NIC just a few days ago was so powerful to just see the depth that we can go in contemplating the kindness of others in just taking one object and not even looking at the kindness of them doing the work that they did to be able to produce the object that we're using, but trying to see them as a human being behind that, in terms of like, what's their family life like? What are their troubles? What are their worries? What are their joys? They're just like mine. So there's so much potential in these everyday activities that we have to view them in a vastly different way than I normally do, or we can do with an ordinary mind. But we can transform them through mindfulness, through study, through practice, through habituation, to be very sacred rituals that can cultivate awareness of death, impermanence, kindness, compassion, bodhicitta. And it just takes training, familiarization, and the determination, the aspiration, seeing the benefit of doing so. Yeah. I think one thing that also was nice to contemplate was, after we eat, we do various dedication verses, and we dedicate for all beings to attain the 2 bodies of a Buddha, the form body and the truth body. And attaining the body of a Buddha, then we won't need food. We'll have just bodies of light that can emanate and benefit others spontaneously. And so thinking, may I eat this meal so that I don't have to eat again? I know that's not practical in this life, but in terms of may I eat this meal so that I can practice, so that I can not have to take another body of flesh and blood and bones that gets old, sick, and dies, but may I practice so that I may attain the body of a Buddha and then help all others do the same. So may we cultivate mindfulness. That's not just bare attention, but is mindfulness of virtue, virtuous objects, virtuous topics, a lamrim in every activity that we do, particularly our lunch that we're about to eat now, so that we can create causes to progress on the path to awakening.